Hello guys, welcome back once again to yet another tutorial on CSS. Last time we looked at some of the basics of CSS. So we did an introduction. So today we'll be looking at some of the properties that are there in CSS. So we'll be looking at padding and margin in this tutorial. All right, so let's get started. So last time what we did is we created a folder called CSS where we again created a file called styles.css, and that's where we were writing our external CSS, right? So all the styles for our CSS is external. We discussed that there are actually three ways that you can add your CSS to your HTML, and that is embedded, right? Where you write the style tag like that, then you add your CSS in there, right? So you add your CSS in there. So let's just say purple or pink here. Let's try pink. So where you add your colors like that. So for now, let me comment this. Okay. So whenever you comment something in your code, it won't run. So this line of code, which was connecting us to our external CSS, won't be able to be picked up, right? All right, so let's save the work. We can then open our file. So this is our index.html, right, which is the entry file for our website. So just open it using Livesaver, right? Yeah, so we use Livesaver. Let's wait for it. Okay, so it's opened. Okay, so here it is, right? You can't see the text that much, but I'm sure, yeah, right now it's a bit visible, right? Because we've changed the color to pink. If I change it maybe to blue, you'll be able to like see it, right? Blue. Sorry, yeah, it's changed to blue, right? So that's how you add your embedded CSS inside here. Then we also discussed there's what we call inline, where you write the style, then the properties inside, right? So let's choose red. Okay, so when we save our work and check, the text has changed to red. Okay, all right. So now before we dive into what padding is and what margin is, I think one of the things that I would like to talk about is there's a concept of there's a concept of there's a concept of I've forgotten the exact term that it's called, but it looks at the importance of, it's something to do with hierarchy, right? So we have three ways that you use to um, embed, whether embed or inline or insert, right? To insert your CSS, or rather just connect your CSS to your HTML. Three ways, right? So we've talked about the embedded one, which we were showing here. Then this is the inline one, right? And we're able to see that it's working. Then you also have the external, right? Now let's say you use all three, right? So let me put the embedded one back. Okay, then for this one we change the color to change the color maybe to paper. Okay, paper like that. Okay, so as you can see, we're targeting the same element but different colors, different styles, right? Then with this one, blue, okay, right? So let's even uncomment this line of code so that we connect even the file externally, right? Now the question that you might ask is which styles are going to be applied, right? So in this case, the style that is going to be applied is actually this one, the red color. Okay, so when we go to our code, you can see that the text is red. So the blue is just a background color from our external CSS, right? So if I remove it, okay, you can see that the background color is gone, right? But the color of the text is red. It's not purple or white, right? It's not purple or white. It's actually red. So the way the hierarchy works is it picks up the properties that are very close to the element that you're trying to target or change, Okay, so in this case, our inline styles are the ones that are closer to this paragraph than the embedded and also the external one, right? So when we remove this style here, right, and we save our work, the closest styles now is the one inside the HTML file, which is the embedded CSS. So when we go on our site, you see that it's now purple, right? But when you remove the styles for the purple, right, when you remove them like that, you save the work, that's when you now see that it's white, right? So you can't see it here because the background is also white. If we try to change it maybe into something like gray, right, you'll now be able to see it there, right? So you need to understand that when you're applying the same properties uh, to the same element, the highlight is always that the inline styling will be more dominant than the embedded and the external as well. Okay, so that's the highlight, that's how it works. All right, okay, so now I think we can dive into now looking at what padding is and what margin is. All right, so what I'll do is let me just open Figma. Okay, let me open up Figma so that we use it. Okay, okay, let me just open it up here. Okay, it's still loading a bit. Let me just pushed it to another screen. Okay, as we wait for it. Okay, so in CSS, all right, so moving forward, the style, the method that we'll be using to attach our CSS is actually external, right? So everything that I'll be doing in terms of our CSS will be external. Okay, so this is our external, right? So everything I'll be doing is here. Okay, so let me remove that color, then we'll start applying other properties, right? So let me just remove everything from there. Okay, all right, so now I think we can now create a file. Okay, so I want to use Figma to illustrate the concept of padding and margin as well. All right, so let me just name that padding and margin. Okay, inside the right box model, right, there's a model that we use. So imagine you have a content, right? I'll put the content here, right? So I'll just put the word margin and padding. So imagine this is your paragraph, right? So it can be anything. It can be an image, it can be a paragraph, it can be a text input, it can be anything. Yeah, that your visitors are able to see on your website, right? So imagine this is your content, right? This is maybe a paragraph or even a heading. Maybe it's an H1 or something like that, right? Okay, we have something like this. Now, there are times when maybe you'd want to create space around it, above it, and things like that, okay? So in CSS, there is a concept that we call the box model, okay? It's called the box model. Okay, so now imagine, okay, so I'll just get like different boxes. Yeah, so write another one in here, just put it there. Okay, let me change the color to blue. Okay, right, so the concept of the box model is that when you have content, let me change this to white because I'll put it inside here. Okay, it has to be on top. Okay, yeah, so imagine you have content which is here. Okay, here, so here we have about 3 layers. We have this content, we have the box, which is the blue one, and the gray one, right? Yeah, so the space between, right, between the blue line and the white text, this whole space is the one that we call padding. Okay, let me just call this padding. Okay, this space is the one that we call padding. Let me just reduce the font a bit so that there's a difference, okay, between the content. So let me even just say content, so that content item, okay, so that we don't get confused. All right, so imagine this is the content. So the content isn't limited to text. It can be an image, like I mentioned, a video, right? So the space between the content, so let's give an example. It's text, right? So the space between the text and its border, right? So the border is this one, okay? So everything in HTML is viewed as a rectangle, more like a box, as a square, right? So we understand that the box has a border, okay? So the border is this line, okay? So here, the way we've created it, obviously we've already added the spacing right around it. So that space is called padding. The space between the border of the content and the content itself is called padding. But the space beyond the border, okay, beyond the border, this is not limited to just this part, right? So this is like, if I check the margin there is 64 pixels, right? But if we check for the padding, you find the distance between this content and the border is 101 pixels. Okay, that's the padding, but the margin is the space between this border and that edge, right? That's the margin. Okay, that's the margin. So we call this the margin. Okay, so this is the margin, right? Okay, so I think with this understanding, we can now dive into the practical part and be able to just see how this works. Okay, so we'll get to our HTML. Let's go to our HTML. Okay, so we have this paragraph there, and when you go on our website, we'll find this is the paragraph. Okay, this is the paragraph. Now, with this paragraph, okay, it's just that I've forgotten the extension that I usually use. There's an extension that shows you the how this is viewed. Okay, let me just try to see. So there's an extension that you can get. Forgotten the name of the extension. Basically, the extension helps you look at this as a box, right? So this is always viewed as a box, more like a rectangle. Any element, like I mentioned, is viewed as a rectangle with those properties that we're from mentioning, which is padding and margin. Okay, so let me use this one for now. Let me use this one for now. Okay, so let me, yeah, when I scroll on that one, right, when I click there, you are able to see, right, that's a rectangle. Okay, that's a rectangle, and it shows you even the pixels, right? Shows you the margin is 16 pixels, and the padding inside it, at the moment we don't have any space, so that's why it's not showing you the space, but the margin is 16 pixel. Now the question that maybe you might have is, where did we put the 16 pixel that we are seeing there, right? Because here, look, there's a 16 pixel here, right? So this is the box model I was talking about, right? So we have 16 pixel, but inside here, right, this is the content. This is the content. It's taking up 264 pixel width. Then the height is 18 pixel, right? So the height of this text is 18 pixel, but the width here from this point to this point is 624 pixels, right? Now we've seen that the margin is 16 pixel, but the padding is 0. There's nothing here, right? So on the top and bottom we have what? We do have 16 pixels. Now where is this coming from? Because we didn't add any properties in our CSS even inside here, right? So any element that you add in your HTML has got default properties, especially on the margin, right? So whenever you are starting your structure, you need to always remove the defaults from all elements. So here in my CSS, what I usually do is I'd write a star. So a star means everything. You're targeting everything, right? So these are inputs, paragraphs, anything that you can think of, that any HTML element that you can think of, right? So this covers all that. So when we do that, we open the brackets, right? So this is now our selector. Remember we talked about selectors, right? Previously we were using P because we're trying to target the paragraph, but right now we're using the star because we're targeting everything. So from here you can now say margin. Okay, so margin here is a property, then the value that we want to give it is 0 because you want to remove all the defaults, right? Then the other one is padding. Okay, padding, we're adding what? 0. Okay, 0. Then you save your work. Then when you go back and look at it, you now see that the text has even moved to the, what's this, to the top left corner there, right? Without any spaces, in short, without any margin right now, right? So if we check again, you see that now the what? The margin has gone. Okay, so you want to remove all the defaults so that you start now applying your own style, because at times what happens is you'll be adding your styles, meanwhile there are defaults, and you'll be wondering why things are not working the way you want them, because you are adding on top of the defaults, right? And so you're not getting the exact what's this, the exact units, right? I wanted to say the exact specifications, right? And this has just reminded me of the term that I had forgotten. So the term is called specificity, right? Specificity is the hierarchy that I was mentioning in terms of how you can target your CSS, right? The importance, how if you are adding inline or embedded or external and they're having the same properties, right, to the same element. Okay, so it's called specificity. So specificity is where you look at which one is more dominant, whether the inline, the embedded, or the external, right? Okay, so after removing the defaults, that's now when you can start adding your own styles, right? So in this case, what we're trying to change is the what? The paragraph, right? So what are we going to do? So we're going to target now the paragraph. Okay, so from here we can actually now add our own stuff that we want. Okay, so to make our work easier, what we're going to do is we're going to create a border. Okay, so create a border around our paragraph so that we're able to see the spaces properly. So the border will be 2 pixels. Okay, so the 2 pixels is just the units that we are using. Okay, so I'll close it like that. So 2 pixels is just the units, the thickness of the border itself, right? So say 2 pixels, then there's a style. It can be a dotted border or it can be a solid border, different styles, right? So for now we use a solid border. Okay, then we give it a color, give it maybe blue, right? Okay, so we save our work, and when we check on our paragraph, you see that we now have a border like that, you've seen, but right now there isn't any margin, right? So now whenever you want to create space outside this border, you now call on the margin. Remember, the space outside the border is the margin, right? So there on margin we can just say we want 100 pixels. Okay, and we save our work, and when we go there, you notice that now 100 pixels has been applied, right? So when we check using that, right, you can now see that there's 100 pixel everywhere on all sides, right? There's 100 pixels, right? So now what if we want to create space? We want to create space between this blue line and the text. We want to create some space, right? It's too much on the edge. So with that one, remember what I said, it's called what? Padding. So padding is basically the space between the content that we have and the border. So if we say padding, we say maybe let's say 30 pixel, right? So I'm just like guessing these values. You can add whichever ones depending on your needs, right? Okay, so you can now see that there's what? There's space around the content like that. Okay, so I think the last thing that we can look at on margin and padding is the sides, right? The sides. So if you notice here, okay, if I bring that to here, I click, you notice that when I apply the margin or the padding, it's covering all sides, right? But previously when we were looking at this two, it was showing that the 16 was on top and at the bottom, and these sides did not have any spacing, right? So how do we specify only to say, okay, we only want the 100 on top and the bottom only, or on the left side and the right side only. How do we do that, right? So when we use this term margin alone, okay, and we specify the units, we are actually catering for all sides. There are actually 4 sides, so we are catering for all sides, right? So now if you want to specify exactly which side you want, okay, let me just remove all these for now. If you want to specify, you can say margin top, okay, margin top, then you add let's say 50 pixel, right? Margin top, so this one will only be applied on the top, right? So if we go back, you can see that the space is only where? On the top. So if you want again on the left side, you can specify here by saying margin left, okay, then you apply your 50 pixel like that. Okay, so when you go, you notice now we have the 50 pixel, right? Then again on the right side, if you want, you can also do the same. You can say margin right, like that, then you say 50 pixel. Okay, when you do that, you now have that 50 on the right side. Okay, and when you check again using that property, so I think I clicked, okay, let me just restart that. When we check again like that, you notice now that we have 50 on top, left, and bottom. I mean, sorry, on the right side, but not at the bottom, right? So that's how you specify. You can add even at the bottom. At the moment, you won't notice that much change with the bottom part because we don't have any content at the bottom, right? So you wouldn't notice, sorry, yeah, so at the bottom, because you wouldn't notice the space. So if we open, right, you won't notice that there is space at the bottom, right? Let's try to maybe add another paragraph so that you see what I mean. Okay, so just say bottom content, right? Just say bottom content. When we check, this is the bottom content. Now remember, it has the same styles because we are targeting the paragraph overall. Okay, we're targeting the paragraph. Now if we want to target only a specific element excuse, so we'd use the ID or a class, right? So if I add a class and I say top, for example, I just say top content, right? Top content. Now we'll create there will be a separate video where that will be dedicated to classes and IDs only, so we'll look at that in more details. Okay, so for now, just know that we can actually use a class to target a specific element that we want, right? So we can get this class. Okay, we go to our CSS. Instead of targeting all paragraphs, we can use a dot because we are calling a class, and just apply those properties to that property, right? So now you can see that this no longer has those properties, right? So this space here, right? Let me do this. Okay. Yeah, let me cancel that. I think I keep pressing this one. So when we do that, now you can see that there's a 50, right, space at the bottom there. Okay, at the bottom here. All right. Okay. Right. So that's that on the sides. Now this is a lot, right? We're from writing margin top, margin left, margin right, margin bottom, and it's the same thing when you want to apply your padding. There's padding top, padding left, padding right, and padding bottom, right? Now there's a shortcut that you can use. Instead of writing all these, what you do is you say margin, the same margin we're using, right? Because remember, when you put one, right, one unit here, it covers for all these, right? Because here, if we just say 50 pixel and remove all these, you won't see a difference, right? You won't see the difference. Okay, so how do we now use one margin but be able to specify on those different items? So the way it works with this one is that the first unit, all right, covers the top. Okay, so the first unit covers the top. Okay, so this is the first unit. Let me change the text to black. Okay, so that's the on the first one, right? First, then the second one is right, right? Second one, then the third one is there, then the fourth one is on the left. Okay, that's the fourth unit. Okay, so the fourth unit is on the left side like that. Okay, now there are times when you'd want to just apply maybe on all of them, which we've already seen, you just specify one unit, right? So you need to look at it like clockwise direction, right? So we have the first unit, second, third and fourth, right? So we can specify, so we can say on top we want 50 pixel, then on the right side we want 50 pixel as well, then on the bottom we want 50 pixel, then on the left side 150 pixel. It still work and we don't have any problem like that, still the same, right? Okay, now you can say, okay, top we want 10 pixel, okay, because this is the top, remember this is the right, bottom, left, clockwise like that, right? So when we save our work and go check, you notice that on top now there's a bit of space. If we want to affect the left side, we just go on the left side. And which one is that? This is top, right, bottom, left, right? So left we want also just 10 pixel. Okay, so when we check, you notice that the left side has been affected, right? Now here's the other thing, right? So we've said that this, right, this is the top, and this is the sorry, this is the right side, this is the bottom, this is left, right? Now if we remove this thing, if we remove this, right, what are we remaining with? We're remaining with the top, right, and bottom, right? Now what about the other one? So the other one, if we don't mention it, it captures the opposite side. Okay, so if, right, say you pick the top, then you don't put for the third one, right, it will pick on the first one, and vice versa, still the same with this opposite side. If we add for the second one, we forget the fourth one, it will pick for the second one. Okay, so here the way it is we've specified for the top, right, in the bottom, then we've also specified for the right side, but the left we did not specify, right? Because if you check currently, these are the properties. But if I refresh, right, if we save our work and we check, you notice that the space would have increased on the left side, right? Why? Because it's tapping from the right side as well. Okay, so this one also gets to affect the other one. Okay, same thing if we remove this. Okay, say pixel, if we remove this guy is the top, so it gets to also affect the bottom, this guy also get to affect, right? So if I say 0 pixel here, right, if I say 0 pixel there, I go on my website, you now see that the top and the bottom are 0 pixel, both of them, because here there isn't anything, right? Okay, so on the bottom we didn't add anything. Remember, this is top, right, bottom, then we have left, right? So this is another way of just adding all those properties that you need without writing margin left, margin bottom, and all those things. This can really come in handy instead of you repeating the same lines of code over and over, right? So you can just use this shortcut. Okay, I think the last thing that we can look at is now something that will definitely become in handy when you want to center things, right? So we do have this paragraph. Okay, there's always that joke about centering a div. Okay, so we try it out. Yeah, so imagine we have a div. Let me just get the class so that we are still applying the same properties. Okay, so let me just turn it into a div. Okay, so this is a div. Okay, and for now I won't add any content inside it. Okay, let me create some spaces so that you're able to see it, right? So what we're going to do is we want to center this div. Okay, we want to center the div. Yeah, so at the moment you won't see anything on the page. Okay, you won't see anything on the page. You're able to see this because of the widget that we added, because of these properties, but if we remove them, okay, if we remove them, you won't see anything. Okay, yeah, you won't see anything because we didn't add any content. So what we're going to do is that we specify the height of that div, right? So say it's 300 pixel. Okay, 300 pixels, that's the height. Now you can't see anything because it doesn't have content again. So we just added like a background color so that you're able to see it, right? So call it blue. Okay. So when you check, you've seen it's occupying the whole thing. That's the height, 300 pixels, because it's zoomed in. So when we set, you're able to see that, right? This is the height of 300 pixel. Now we want to center it, right? It's already right now, because it's like the width is 100% the screen size, right? So if let's say we specify to say, okay, the width is maybe 600 pixels, okay, you'll be able to see that it's now at the corner there, right? Top left corner, like that. Now we want to center this div here. What do we do, right? Sometimes people do this, right? let's see that. Sometimes people do that, right? Now what you've done there is not center the div itself, right? Because the div is a child of the body. Okay, so when you say text align center, you are centering the content inside that element, right? So whatever we add inside that div will be centered. That's what it means, right? So if let's say inside the div here I try to add a paragraph, okay, if I try to add a paragraph, then I say center content, right? I save my work and check. You notice that it's at the center, right? We've centered that content because of the same property, which is text align center, right? Now here what you can do is, that's where again the margin comes in handy, right? So the margin, this concept that I'm about to show you, only works if you've specified the width, right? So we've specified the width. So the margin there, remember we said the first unit is what is the top, right? And the second one is what? Right. It's the right. Then the last one, I mean, this is not the last one. The third one is bottom, right? Bottom, that's bottom, and the last one now is the left side, right? So we have these four. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We said that if you don't specify these two, okay, automatically the first unit will also apply to the bottom, then the second one also apply to the left, right? So what do we want to do? We want to center it, right? We want to center it, push it at the center, meaning what we're affecting is we're creating space on the left side and on the right side, right? Because it will be at the center, right? So the top, you can just say 0 pixel so that you don't affect anything from the top and bottom, right? But on the left side, you want to specify so that they have equal padding on both sides, right? So that it's at the center. So you can't know the exact unit. So what do? You use the word auto, right? So when you say auto, they will have equal, right? It will automate itself, right? So they will have equal padding, I mean margin. So when we save and we check, you now see that the div has been centered, right? So let's even remove that. Okay, remove that. So we'll see that the div has been centered right here. Okay, and that's how you center a div. Yeah, so I think for now this is where we end. And yeah, so in this tutorial we're just looking at how we can apply margin and padding. Okay, so next time we'll dive deep now into looking at how we can use IDs and classes in our CSS. See you in the next video.